This bloody video, we'll be learning the Australian windmills, you c***s.
Mate!
What up guys, it's your boy Coach Sambo, and with the help of one of my students, BBoy Wayan, we'll be showing you the steps and the secrets to get that Australian windmill on lock in no time. Now of course, before learning the Australian windmill, you want to obviously be able to do a normal windmill first. So if you don't know how to do a normal windmill yet, then hop on over to my YouTube channel, and there you will find multiple videos on windmill, including a very neat windmill tutorial. Another thing I very strongly recommend to learn your Australian windmill a lot faster is to preferably know how to do a tombstone windmill, because the techniques are very similar, and to be honest, the tombstone windmill is slightly easier than the Australian windmill. So yeah, you can find a tutorial on tombstone, of course, on my YouTube channel. So it would be smart to subscribe if you haven't already.
You look after your mates and your mates will always look after you.
So the first step to learn the Australian windmill is to learn how to do the head mill, which is basically a windmill, but instead of using your stab or your baby freeze, we're using a headstand to help us levitate when we're not on our back. This can easily be done by pulling in the legs when lying on your back to create that pump to help you lift yourself up to your head. And then once you get up to your head, open the legs back up so you can then pull them back in and regenerate the next pump to help you execute this head mill continuously. Now, as you can see with this head mill, at first you want to utilize your hands to help you execute it a lot easier and give you more stability. Now I go in detail on this technique right here in my windmill to head spin video. So check out that video if you want to go more into depth when it comes to this head mill. Now, if you know how to do a head mill, the next step is to apply the Australian form, but only when lying down on your back. That means executing your head mill, but when standing on your head, keeping your legs open and stretched, and then applying the Australian form or shape as soon as you go down onto your back. Now, how do you know which leg to stretch and which leg to pull in and fold over the other leg? Well, that's decided by what hand you perform your baby freeze or turtle freeze on. If you perform your stab or baby freeze on your right arm, then you want to fold your right leg and stretch the left leg. However, if you perform your baby or stab freeze on your left arm, then obviously you want to bend the left leg and keep the right leg stretched. Now, breaking is limitless, so it is possible to switch the legs around and be creative, but let's stick to the basic Australian mill for now. Now, I'm not sure where they call it the Australian windmill. Was it an Australian b-boy that came up with it first?
So how did you come up with the famous Australian windmill?
Oh, well, it's really quite funny. I was in bed sleeping at 2 o'clock this morning. My wife comes in and says,
I actually have no idea. So if you know, let us know in the comments down below so we can learn more than just the technique here on Coach Sambo's YouTube channel.
mate,
So this head mill with an Australian form is the first thing you really want to get on lock. Keeping in mind that at this point you can still use your arms and hands to help you maintain speed and momentum, and also help you out with balance during that headstand. So if this works, that's great, because that means you're pretty close to learning the Australian windmill. Now the next step is performing this head mill with an Australian form, now taking away the hands and arms. Keeping in mind you still want to open up the legs while going onto your head, and then bringing them back to the Australian form as soon as you go back down to your back. Now, even though at this point you don't have your arms anymore to help you maintain speed, you can, however, generate speed by pulling those legs in to the Australian form, therefore using gravity to your advantage to create and generate speed and velocity. Now, if you know how to do this one, then you are getting familiar with the feel and the technique of the Australian windmill. So now let's try and execute that Australian form during the whole windmill, including the headstand. If you can do one of these, then it's already looking pretty good. However, I bet at this point, you're probably gonna lose speed, which makes it pretty challenging to execute 3, 4, or 5 of these Australian windmills. So don't worry, there's a technique for this. But the first thing you want to do at this point is actually execute multiple Australian windmills, but now giving yourself access again to your hands. So that means just executing 3, 4, or 5 Australian windmills with hands. Again, just a great way to help you develop more comfort and to take in that feel of the Australian windmill.
So yeah, Coach Sambo, I know how to do this. So how do I maintain speed without my hands?
Well, this technique comes down to the hips. Basically pulling your hips in every time you go onto your head, and then pushing the hips out every time you land on your back. Now, it can be a little bit tricky because it's not that clear when looking at someone executing an Australian windmill. However, those hips are folding in and out, helping maintain and generate speed throughout this windmill variation. It's kind of the same principle as a backspin or a head spin. The more open the form is, the slower it spins, and the more you bring those legs in and reduce your size, the more it speeds up. This is basically something that happens on loop during your Australian windmill, which basically is the technique to perform it continuously. Also, the Australian form or shape is a great little extra that you can use to combine with other ground power. For example, mixing it up with a head coin drop, which by the way is a lot easier than the Australian windmill itself.
mate.
Now, the sickest Australian windmills that I've seen were definitely from back in the day. However, I'm very curious to know which B-boy or B-girl executed the sickest Australian windmills that you have ever seen in your life. Let us know in the comments down below so we can push the limits on this move. Also, if you love my videos and you like the way I teach, then keep in mind I have hundreds of tutorials that you can find on my YouTube channel. Also, on my website, you can find in-depth and exclusive masterclasses where I share the most valuable content that I've learned after 20 years of professional B-boy coaching. So definitely check out what's available. You might be surprised. Because at the end of the day, when you think about it, it's just all about that B-boy shit.
Yeah, cheers. Thanks a lot, guys.